You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You are now entering the Pseudo-Archaeology Podcast, a show that uncovers what's fact, what's fake, and what's fun in the crazy world of pseudo-archaeology. Hello and welcome to the Pseudo-Archaeology Podcast, episode 177. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Kinkella, and tonight, 2025, the year in review. So, hey, hello, and what's up, y'all? It is the depths of December as I'm recording this. It is warm, even by LA standards, for this December. It's weird. It's in Southern California in December when it's warm. It can get even in the 70s during the day, but at night it'll get cold. Cold for Southern California people, you know, like 51 degrees. Yeah. So from that kind of frostiness, I'm coming at you with my year in review. I actually kind of like doing this because I did this last year too. And it's fun for me to just look back on the stories I've told this year, kind of what I've done this year, my reactions to some of these stories, your reactions to some of these stories, you know, the general public, the world's reaction to my stories. And it gives me just a different viewpoint on some of this. It's a learning experience for me, seriously. So we'll just go through it and that'll be it. See how I feel on each of these. So starting in January 1st, it says 2025. Started with an encore episode. How lazy am I, dude? Encore episode. That's actually probably going to happen this year too, you know, right near the end. I don't know when this is going to come out. Who knows? Who knows? But at the end of December and very beginning of January, obviously, even the APN shuts down for a little while because Rachel and Chris want like time off or something. I don't know. It's strange. So it started with an encore of The Curse of King Tut, which I did a while back. I dig that episode, though. Curse of King Tut, episode 128. Check it out, man. I had long forgotten about that episode. Then a friend of mine listened to it and was like, hey, Kinkella, this episode's pretty good. And I'm like, really? Most of these, you guys, I sort of record them and I often listen to them back right when they come out, you know, but then I just kind of long forget about them. And sometimes I even have ideas that I've already had, you know, I'll be like, oh, hey, I know, I'll do The Curse of King Tut. It's like, hey, dude, you did that 2 years ago. Right. I'm at that point where that's happening to me because I think we're at 177 right now. So that means I've done like 77. I've done like 83 episodes or something like that. Kind of a lot. All right. So that's just a rehash, a retread. Sad. Then I did 2 weeks later, and these are, of course, in 2 week steps. Episode 154 was From the Jungles of Belize. Beware the Duende. I remember this. That's when I finally told my Duende stories. And the Duende are these kind of sneaky leprechaun creatures that the Belizeans talk about, right? They're these mythological creatures that live in the jungles, right? These are the jungles of Central America. And the idea is that they do all of the sneaky stuff kind of behind your back, like, oh, you lost a sock in the dryer. Ah, the duende, right? You know, oh, the horse's hair looks kind of braided in the morning. The duende braided the horse's hair. Right. And the duende are seen as these little, again, leprechaun guys. They have these curly shoes. Sometimes, depending on who you talk to, they'll talk about the duende as their feet like point the wrong way. Sometimes they're more funny and sometimes they're more kind of dark and mischievous. Like they'll steal children, that kind of stuff, you know, kind of dark. But that's one of those things that makes working in a place like Belize that much more fun and interesting and cool is when you hear these local myths that have been passed down and you just have a laugh and you have some fun. Like I enjoyed listening to those. Staying on my Belize vibe, 155 was Kinkella meets the witch doctor of Belize. That is true. That was way back. That's one of my old stories, not in terms of the podcast, but in terms of when it happened to me. That was in the summer of 1996, my second year in Belize. And I was friendly with one of the local guys who worked with us. And I spent the night at his house, and he took me to go see the witch doctor. And there's a whole story to what that was like, what that meant, the sort of symbolism behind it, the ritual that goes with it. Really cool. That's one of those stories where I'm like, did that really happen? Or did I watch that on some like weird movie of the week? But no, I have some photos. I'm like, thank God, even in the 90s, there's photos once or twice. So I'm like, yes, I was there. There's a photo of me. There's a photo of the witch doctor. Okay, so that was cool. Next, I talked about the Chupacabra. Episode 156 is titled "The Chupacabra is Coming to Get You," because it's the Chupacabra. The Chupacabra was weird, you guys, because it's one of those stories that I thought was really old. Meaning it had like some depth to it, right? That it was like 200 years old or 300 years. I thought it was one of those ones that like came over with the Spanish, but it's not. The Chupacabra is a story that originated in, honestly, the 80s and 90s. Really, it was in the 1990s, most likely. And it involves the movie Species, and it's sort of conflated in this woman's mind. And this one story, this one person told in the 90s, like, became the Chupacabra. And when you look at the Chupacabra, I find this so fascinating, because the more I do these stories, you guys, the more I just see the connections with some of them. And it's fascinating how all people, when they're confronted with 2 or 3 or 4 stories that are like similar, they conflate them all into one, right? And it makes sense. So the Chupacabra is this conflation of the movie Species with like kind of lizardy creatures, but with kind of more wolf-looking creatures. It morphs over time the more we tell it. It's new mythology, right? That is based in, I mean, it's a silly story, but it's a real story someone told in the 90s. And then it's become larger than life. It totally has, right? And what's interesting is Google like Chupacabra images, and you'll see that there's like a mix. There's no agreement on what the Chupacabra looks like and what the Chupacabra does. It's really wide. Like, if you're talking about Santa Claus or something, there's massive agreement on what Santa Claus is. You can have little varieties, but not really. Santa Claus is pretty set in stone. But Chupacabra is totally not. I'm super curious. In 20 years, 40 years, will the Chupacabra be forgotten? Or will it be sort of set in stone, like Santa Claus, or even like Loch Ness Monster? They're fairly set. But Chupacabra is still morphing. It's still taking time. Fascinating. I love stuff like that. So I did the next one. I went over monoliths was the next story at the end of February. Episode 157 was Monolith. 2001, 2010, today, and forever. Yeah, so I did a show on monoliths because monoliths, we get what monoliths are, right? And the most famous monolith is like in the movie 2001. The idea of them popping up. What's cool is that this idea of this sort of monolithic, this sort of featureless almost object, but obviously made by an intelligence, is something that people have just, glommed onto, and they keep doing. You'll still find them in the desert today because people will put them up as almost artistic projects in secret. This is one of those ones where it's obviously fake. There's no alien intelligence putting up monoliths. It's people having a little fun on a Saturday night. But I love it. I love that people have fun on a Saturday night and put up monoliths. Like, good for them. I love it. And I know some people get all bent out of shape because like, oh, they're doing it in a national park. I'm like, it's all right. Dude, think about how many much more awful things are happening in this world. I mean, the fact that they put up a monolith in a national park, I'll get over it. It's going to be okay. All right. Next, I can't believe I took this long to tell this story. Mid-March, I did Kinkella visits Sedona, Arizona, and gets new aged. That's right, episode 158. This is another story from my past. I can't believe how many of these I have. I must lead a pseudo-archaeological life. So that was when I think my wife and I went there before we were married. I think it was 2006. And we basically just took a trip to Sedona, Arizona for a couple of days. And coming from California, it's not that far. You know, it's if you fly, it's not. I think we flew, but it's, you know, you fly into, I forget where, Phoenix? I can't remember. But we were just there for a couple of days. And I just talked about Sedona, if you don't know, is a center of new age craziness, right? And just there, like there's maps for the vortices, right? The vortexes that are throughout the city, and you're supposed to go out and commune with the Stones and all that kind of jazz. Yes, I would prefer to commune with the Rolling Stones, but the Stones themselves, yes, you get out there and you go a bunch of times and you sit, you know, cross-legged, and just every cliche, every new age cliche, you know, every new age like crystal shop is there. So I'm guessing it hasn't changed at all. I did notice that recently, I think one of the stupid pseudo-archaeology meetings was, I think, in Sedona. It's a perfect place for that kind of crap. You know, it's just is dopey. Underneath all the BS, it's very pretty. Sedona is really pretty. I do highly recommend going there and checking it out. It does have that red rocks look, that desert almost glow to it. It is beautiful. Just all the new age people that you have to not look at. Oh, next. Oh, end of March, I did episode 159 live from the Royal Hawaiian, otherwise known as the worst episode I ever did, friends. Why is it so bad? Because I recorded it on my phone, and I was trying to, because I happened to be at the Royal Hawaiian, right, in Honolulu, in Waikiki, in Hawaii. I was there because my sister-in-law was getting married. So that was actually really cool. It was a great trip. But I wanted to do a live walking through the Royal Hawaiian and talking about sort of some of the haunted stories of the Royal Hawaiian and the history of the Royal Hawaiian. And man, it was fun and it was cool. But the process of it just totally messed up. The sound became horrible. I didn't realize how much room tone I was getting. And I walked out into the ocean to give you guys the sound of the ocean, but you couldn't really hear what was going on. You could barely even hear my voice. There was wind. It was awful. It was awful. Episode 159. Definitely do not go back and listen to that one because it's just like brutal. It just didn't work out, which is too bad because the theme, the ideas behind it were pretty good, but it ate itself. Worst episode I've ever done. I tried to help myself by doing episode 160 2 weeks later about the Moana Surfrider. Haunted? The Moana Surfrider is actually the oldest hotel in Waikiki. It's older than the Royal Hawaiian. I believe the Moana Surfrider is 1904 and Royal Hawaiian's like 1926. So Moana Surfrider, they're both freaking awesome places. They're super cool in terms of places to stay. But that one's better. And that, again, there's all these haunting stories. It's just because these hotels are old. Of course, you guys like, oh, yes, the ghost of this person who died in this tragic way in 1951 or whatever it may be, right? But a great place. Oh, I like both of those places for staying in Waikiki. They're, of course, quite expensive, but they're no more expensive often than some of the other like super malooper ones throughout Oahu. I'm telling you guys, I would look, if you're going to Waikiki, definitely price shop. And if you're into like historic, it just feels like there's so much awesome like there. And the location, of course, cannot be beat of either of these hotels. I highly recommend trying to stay. If I had a favorite, it's the Royal Hawaiian, but the Moana Surfrider is right there, you guys. They're both freaking awesome. So, boy, if you ever get the chance, get some, happen to get some cheap, like a cheap stay there, just take it. With that said, look at the time. Let's wrap this up and come back in a moment with more on my review of myself from 2025. Hello, and welcome back to the Pseudo-Archaeology Podcast, episode 177. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Kinkella, and we are looking back at the year in review of the Pseudo-Archaeology Podcast itself. What was I doing? What were we listening to as a group over the past 12 months? And we are already into May. And look at that. May 7th, 2025. You know what I put out? You know what I put out. Encore episode again because I'm freaking lazy. Dude, what happened to me? I don't even know why I did. I'm like, why? The encore episode was Atlantis. Yeah, it's titled Atlantis. Let's do this, which was episode 137. And Atlantis, you guys, I only did Atlantis, right? For the first time, what? That would be maybe 2 years ago or something. Atlantis is hard. Atlantis always like scares me when I do it because there's just so many twists and turns and there's just so much to it. And you know, when you do it, you're like missing something or somebody's going to be pissed because you didn't put their pet theory in or whatever it may be. But Atlantis, I'm happy with that episode. That episode's fine. It's good. But it took me a while. Like, I'm glad that I waited to do Atlantis for like, you know, a year and a half in before I attempted it because there's just a lot to it, man. Yeah. It's so funny. I bet if I had to do it again, I'd probably change it a little bit, you know, just because I've learned that much more. It never ends. There are people who just constantly put out new crap. You know what I'm saying? Wait, you know what? I think, I'm looking at it. Looks like there's a minor problem here. Oh, that's so interesting. I have figured it out. I missed one. Episode 161 was the Dead Sea Scrolls. That was right before the encore. That was the end of April. There we go. Episode 1, Dead Sea Scrolls. Dead Sea Scrolls is another one. It's funny. It's kind of like Atlantis. I'm glad I waited. Dead Sea Scrolls is a great story. It's sort of like Archaeology 101 story. For me, it's something that I didn't really know the story of until many years after I got into archaeology. Like, everyone knows Dead Sea Scrolls, but the particularities behind it. One thing I would bitch about a little about my archaeology education is I never had a really good class on the history of archaeology, like famous sites, you know, that kind of thing. And so I've actually made a class for my students, tentatively titled Great Excavations, you know, that is about like the famous excavations in archaeology. I never had that. That's a bummer. I always feel a bit behind on some of that. And then I have to do kind of my own research and my own reading and my own learning. There are a couple good books on that stuff, but I feel better now on that. That was fun. That's one of those ones. One of the joys of doing this show is I learn, you know, I'm like, I'm going to delve into Dead Sea Scrolls. And I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of remember some old stuff and I learned some new stuff. It's cool. Episode 162. We're already to end of May, called Speaking to the Public at the Society for American Archaeology SAA meetings. Me, Flint Dibble, Milo Rossi, Mini Minuteman, and more. Yeah, I remember this. And you can hear the bummerness in my voice. The bummerness is not from Flint Dibble or Milo Rossi, who are both awesome. I remember, so this is the Society for American Archaeology meetings. It's kind of like the big archaeology conference that happens once a year. And we were doing this thing about speaking to the public, trying to train real archaeologists to speak to the general public. And I came out of that, you guys, just really depressed. Not depressed for myself, because I'm awesome, but depressed just at my fellow archaeologists, that so many of them suck so bad and they're so behind in terms of talking to fellow humans on Earth. It's like, good Christ. I remember being in a meeting about public outreach, and the big takeaway, and I think I talked about this in that podcast, was that the way for archaeologists to move forward with the general public is to post more on, what's that site called? LinkedIn. Post more on LinkedIn. Yeah. Yeah, that the general public is all over LinkedIn. I mean, really? Freaking lame. And Milo Rossi, who's so awesome, who does Mini Minutemen, who literally has millions of followers, they put him in like the world's worst room. I remember that. But I helped him out. I got to meet Milo. He was so cool. He's great. I got nothing but respect for him. And Flint too. Flint was so kind. And I was helping him because he was having some health issues, so he couldn't make it. He was only cool. Those guys were great. So it's a give and take. I loved working with those guys. And it was a bummer seeing how far behind my fellow archaeologists are in terms of talking to humans. Episode 163, titled very straightforwardly, Fountain of Youth is a terrible movie. It sure is. Good Christ. And it has nothing to do. I talk about this in here where it has nothing to do with like that it's a pseudo-sciencey movie, a pseudo-archaeology movie. I have no problem with that stuff. Pseudo-archaeology in the movies is the perfect place for them. It's fake stuff, but they make great stories. That's fine. I mean, it's not the content, right? In terms of the pseudo-archaeology of it, it's just the movie itself. What a horrendous, stinky piece of crap. So forgettable. I mean, who now? I did this. Let's see, this is early June. So this was obviously a summer movie. Who even knows what Fountain of Youth is 6 months later? You see, this is the problem with modern movies. Fountain of Youth is a poster child for the problem with modern movies. Just schlocky bullshit waste of time crap, you know? And I know it makes me sound like an old man, but like, I think young people feel the same too. It's so weak. And the writing is terrible. And the like, construction of relationships in Fountain of Youth, terrible. Like they have the hero say stuff to the femme fatale, like the female lead, who they ultimately want to kind of get together with, stuff that's just like gross and like unattractive and weird. It's like humans, again, archaeologists have problems with human beings. It seems like modern writers have problems with human beings too. It's like, nobody says that. Nobody on earth would ever say that like that in that situation. Oh, so unbelievable. Man, what a stinky piece of crap. Fountain of Youth. Horrible. It's fun. See, this is fun. I haven't thought of it for 6 months. And coming back, I'm like, God, I think it was worse than I thought. Freaking sucky. Oh, and then the next one, we're in mid-June already. Episode 164, I did current events, pseudo-archaeology stories on the pyramids, the Ark, and hanging out with Flint and Milo from a plane. Yeah, every so often, once in a long time, I'll do sort of an update of stuff in the news. That's when there was that bullshit story about like huge constructions underneath the pyramids of Giza. So stupid. I found some stories about the Ark of the Covenant was found basically in the 1980s by the CIA because they would interview people under hypnosis and they would tell them it's oh, you guys, so lame. And then I did zoom in while I was on a plane to a live Zoom meeting with Flint and Milo. That was hilarious. Really funny. That was fun. So see, as with so often in this show, you take the good with the bad. Oh, speaking of good with the bad, and then in July, I did in episode 165, Cosmic Summit 2025, which I titled The Mount Everest of Laughable Pseudo-Archaeological Nonsense. Yes, the Cosmic Summit, so stupid. And so Flint and I also did basically a team Zoom podcast thing on his channel about the Cosmic Summit, and I thought it was really funny. It actually got a lot of views. Like Flint's channel is quite big, and that one was big for even his show. There were some really funny moments. So stupid, right? That's the one where all the like tools and morons and shysters, that's really what they are. These aren't necessarily dumb people at all. They're just shysters, come together and try and sell their bullshit, stupid stories to the general public. And they have problems. It's getting worse and worse, luckily. Hey, you see, there's hope for the future in terms of selling tickets for this kind of stuff and for people even showing up, because at this point, it's just boring, dumb, lame crap. And like, nobody cares, nobody cares about spinning vases or like, oh, look, proof of aliens. No, it's not. Or some dumb paper that's been refuted 100 times, or, oh no, there's a pyramid here in the jungle. It's like, no, it's a hill. Like, shut up. Weak. 166. Shroud of Turin. The regurgitation. That's right. I thought I was done with the Shroud. I did a thing on the Shroud like a while ago, but it came up again on the podcast. There's this podcast called Dad Saves America, which is a pretty big podcast. And the guy interviewed this father, Robert Spitzer, and this father talked about how the Shroud of Turin was real. So stupid. It's just not. Like, it was, what a waste of time. You know, like, I just can't stand. This is one of the ones I can't stand. This is active ignorance, right? Where all data and information utterly shows you that the Shroud of Turin is a fake. It is such a fake. It's not kind of a fake. There's no like, ooh, maybe. It is a freaking fake. And that's the interest. Like, this so often, pseudo-archaeology fools, they could actually use their time wisely and look into the Shroud and look at the actual idea of the fake, because it's still 1,000 years old. That's still totally awesome and interesting, right? They could look at that. They could look into the reality of it, spend their time learning more about the Shroud. That would be so cool. But alas, no. You know, they just grind on with the same dumb crap. Then we get to the end of July. It's been that long already. And I did a podcast on remembering Brian Fagan. Brian Fagan was a professor of mine. He was actually the very first professor I ever had in school. Like, I took Intro to Archaeology at first quarter as a college freshman, fall of 1990, you know, and this is not, you guys, it wasn't because I had some dreams of becoming an archaeologist. That's just how the schedule went. You know, I was taking a couple other classes at the time. I thought I was going to be an actor. I thought archaeology was cool, but acting was kind of more where my passions, where my focus was lying. I was spending much more time thinking about that. But Brian Fagan taught this just kick-ass Intro to Archaeology, and becoming friends with him much later in life was such a trip for me. I still, like, when I think about it, it almost chokes me up. And it's for a weird reason. It's because it shows me, talking about facts and data, it gives me facts and data for how far I've come personally. You know, you guys get that? You know, when it's like, you never know if you've done well or not well, or something good happened to you, or how good is it, or where am I, you know, how good am I doing in life, or that kind of, it's really deep questions. But seeing Brian and getting to be friends with him and working with him a little bit later in life, and sort of tracking my life against his for years, was really important to me, just as my growth as my human self. As life moves along and gets more complex, he was a touchstone in a way, and a very positive one. And it had such a wow factor to think, oh my God, I'm working with this guy. With that, let's take one last break and come back one more time, and we'll wrap up 2025, the year in review. Well, all right. Welcome back one last time to the Pseudo Archaeology Podcast, episode 177, where we are going over all the stuff I did in 2025. I noticed that for now we're in August. Oh, we're getting there. Episode 168, I have Kinkella climbs the Mount Everest of pseudo-archaeology. I can't believe I used the same metaphor as I used before. Mount Everest of. Gotta learn to stop with the cliches. Mount Everest of archaeology, what I did was, it says, he reads Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods. Oh my God, you guys. I did. Let's see what I wrote underneath it to describe the episode. I wrote unscientific, meandering, silly, actively ignorant, super long, and brutally boring. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And this is another one of those sad cases of a pseudoscientist, Graham Hancock, where he has so much money and juice, you know, in the sort of media world. He could do something cool. I would dare him to do something real. He could really do something cool, something like he could spend time really talking about the archaeology of something hard, something like archaeology of the Amazon. That's something that's really interesting and changing. He could focus and really do that, but he doesn't because he's chicken. He doubles down on his same old crap. So Fingerprints of the Gods, I think, came out in 1994. And it's just all the Graham Hancock stories. You know them. It's just, was there a super civilization? I don't know. He doesn't do anything specific, I think, at the time with the super civilization. That adds more. The whole comet impact thing comes later. It's not in there, but it's basically a travelogue. He and his wife go to all these different places. And actually, as a travelogue, he's a very good writer. So as a travelogue, it's cool. But then he adds this pseudo-archaeology crap into it. And it's so long, you guys. If it was just a travelogue, it would be so much better. Because then his ability to describe things well and set the scene, like, that would be awesome. But oh God, I don't know why these books, who reads this crap? Oh, it's so slow. It's so slow. It's so slow. It's so slow. Dying. Next, 169, I got The Shroud of Turin Returns on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Yes, good Christ. The Shroud of Turin. I think all this stuff has got to be like interrelated. That this stuff comes up in the news or whatever, and then they interview these same guys, or somebody's coming out with a book, because it makes the Piers Morgan show. I like the Piers Morgan show, but the Shroud of Turin, it's just, oh God, waste of our time. Speaking of wasting our time, episode 170, debunking Graham Hancock's easily debunkable, debunking the debunking industry. Yes, Graham Hancock posted this like hour and 15-minute long video about how I'm a fraud. People like me are frauds, but people like him, they're so attacked. They're just heroes. They're fighting for what's right, but they're attacked by cruel, mean archaeologists like me. It's his same old stuff. Oh yeah. I'm reading the little explanation of my own video. I decided to have a little fun by analyzing his video through the lens of narcissism. Oh God. Yeah. See, that's good. You see, guys, I haven't looked at this in months. And so it's nice when I make myself laugh, and you're like, yeah, Kinkella, speaking of narcissism. No, I hadn't looked at this. I'm like, oh, that was a good idea. Yeah, because, who cares about his same dumb stories? But it's fun to critique like the formation of them, the structure of them. What's he doing to try and get you on his side? That kind of stuff. I love doing that. Episode 171, Peopling of the New World. Yeah. So once in a bajillion years for the Pseudo Archaeology channel, I'll do something that just is not so pseudo-y. There was some pseudo stuff in this. Like I talk about, the Cerruti Mastodon site in here a little bit and stuff, but I use some of the pseudo stuff as a jumping off point to really talk about real cool stuff. And as many of you know at this point, Peopling of the New World is one of my very favorite things to talk about. Peopling of the New World and Egypt are my two favorite armchair archaeology things to talk about, meaning I have no practical experience. I have no practical experience in Egypt at all. Zero. I do have actually, I have a lot of experience in California, and I have a tick that would go towards early Peopling of the New World, otherwise known as, have you ever found some early-ish stuff? But I don't do that day to day. Obviously, I'm a Mayanist, right? The Maya stuff that's the stuff that I really know. But it's fun for me to just explore what's up with Peopling of the New World, where things are these days. There was just a site found called Rimrock Draw. This is recent stuff that pushes the dates back. I didn't even talk about that in this. This is from September, because I didn't know Rimrock Draw until like a month ago or so. Kick-ass site that pushes dates older than 18,000. That's great. Episode 172. Check this out. I read Sex is a Spectrum and I'm not convinced. Exactly. So I like to be honest. I like to be fact-based. I like to use data. And look, if there are certain things that don't support the overall, let's be honest, very far left narrative that is in academia, I'm fine pointing that out. I just want to be honest with you guys. I want to be apolitical, right? I don't like being political in any of this stuff because it's just, to me, it's just a huge bore. We come here to have fun with archaeology, and pseudo-archaeology specifically, because, no matter your political affiliation, you can laugh at the Shroud of Turin, But there was this online hubbub over this book called Sex is a Spectrum by Augustin Fuentes. And I read it just like I would read Graham Hancock's book, which I did. I read his book too. Yes, it sucked, right? It's embarrassing. And because sex is not a spectrum, biological sex is strongly binary. I'm not trying to make you feel good. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm not trying to make you feel any way in between, right? I'm trying to look at the basic data. And we see this kind of like sort of overdone academic sort of woke reaction, in this. And I find it fascinating because it's such a place marker of the times, This kind of stuff will not come out in 5 years. It won't come out in 10 years, This stuff is a marker for the early 2020s. And to me, as a cultural anthropological document of the times, it's fabulous, right? Because the arguments for biological sex being a spectrum, the idea that there's a spectrum that kind of flows between men and women, the arguments are awful, you guys. They're hilarious. They're pseudoscience, So when it comes to somebody like the author who wrote that, I'm not here to make him feel bad, and I'm not here to cancel him or any of that crap. I feel positive towards him. I hope he writes a good one next time, and just takes the note and goes, yeah, that one kind of sucked. It happened because of the times. Well, take the note, move on. That's all. I got some pushback, and this was fascinating too. Online, the pushback was all that I'm a horrible homophobe. Or no, sorry, I got my phobe wrong. Transphobe, of course, by unknown people who are empty with no lives. But I got several, not just one, but several personal emails to me from fans of this show who were like, Kinkella, that your show was really awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. I hope you don't get canceled, right? Several people said that. And that made me feel so good, you guys. That was so kind. You don't know how much stuff like that can matter. So I'll take the several real people who signed their name to the email over the fake virtue signaling losers who commented online. Yeah, like I give a damn. I'm going to report facts no matter what they are. And biological sex is not a spectrum. Oh, boy. I thought I did a pretty good job on that, too, by the way. I listened back to it at one point. I'm like, that's very fair and balanced. Damn. 173. Oh, another silly symposium, Quest for Ancient Civilizations. Oh, good God, do these ever end? This is another one of those Graham Hancock type of things, but with no Graham Hancock. They were trying to sell tickets. It was the Quest for Ancient Civilizations conference in Scottsdale, Arizona. They almost made it to Sedona. It's just the same old pseudo-archaeology, lame BS, waste of time, weak. Episode 174. This was one of my favorites. A lot of people listen to this. I got a lot of comments and stuff on this. This was great. This was so unexpected, you guys. I love it when this happens. I just come up with a fun topic just out of left field. I just think about it. And then I'm like, I don't know if this is ever going to work at all. And it went really well. I just know I saw the numbers on this were much higher than a lot of my other shows. This was 174, Art Bell and the Coast to Coast AM radio show. And I did a whole thing on the Coast to Coast AM radio show. Now, the Coast to Coast AM radio show is totally pseudoscience, right? But you guys, I love it. It's okay to love something that's total pseudoscience. No, I don't believe that the caller actually built a time machine in his backyard with auto parts and batteries. That was one of them. But the background with Art Bell and the show that was on late at night, it would be on from like 11 to 2. It was a 3-hour show, but I swear to God, it felt like it was 6 hours. They must have reran it or something, because this was a show largely of the 90s and early 2000s. And this was a time when I would drive from the Bay Area to LA late at night on the 101. I'd be driving at midnight, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. And so I'd listen to this show, and it was just like this companion. You just listen, you'd have a laugh, and you felt like it was one of those things that I think kind of kept America together. Everyone listened to the Coast to Coast AM radio show, just because it was fun. And you'd laugh along with the guy who was building his time machine in his basement or whatever. And every so often, Art Bell would have cool like comedians on, and just sort of interesting people. He'd take calls. The backstory of Art Bell is fascinating. Joe Rogan wants to be the second coming of Art Bell, right? And so if you don't understand Joe Rogan, just listen to Art Bell and learn about Art Bell. Joe Rogan has a poster of Art Bell in his studio, And so it just makes so much sense. And I think, and honestly, you guys, I don't mind the Joe Rogan show at all. But Joe Rogan's difficulty, I think, is he has become much bigger than Art Bell. So because of the size of his podcast, he really is a victim of his own success. So he can't just have on the same kind of crazy people that Art Bell had on. And that's what he does, right? Like Joe Rogan has crazy people on. But then because of his reach, he elevates these crazy people so high that it's tough. I don't know what I would do if I was Joe Rogan. That's a tough. I would understand that he just wants to be himself and he wants to talk to these weirdos, but I would maybe have more people, like when Flint was on the Joe Rogan show, I have more people like that, more real scientists and stuff to talk about real stuff. I think that would be fair to do, because all he's having on are crazy pseudoscientists, pseudo-archaeology stuff. And it's changing the entire public's outlook to archaeology and making everyone believe really crazy shit. So tough one. Interesting, though. I recommend it. Listen to a Coast to Coast AM radio show. They're everywhere. You can find them on YouTube in like 2 seconds, or old, I think Spotify or Apple Podcasts will have old ones. So easy. Episode 175, Mysteries Unearthed with Danny Trejo. Have I sold out yet again? And I just talked about working on the show Mysteries Unearthed. Mysteries Unearthed is one of those shows that goes over tons of real archaeology stuff, but it's sensationalized, and some of it will be tiptoeing towards the pseudo-archaeological world. Now, I personally never do stories that are pseudo-archaeology in nature. I would never say there was such thing as aliens. I would never say the Shroud of Turin is the burial shroud of Jesus. I'd never do anything. Or Atlantis is real. None of that BS. You guys know me. I would never do that. But I love working on these kind of shows. They know me at this point, and they call me in for the real stuff. Now, if I'm on a show that has a fake story with it too, and I'm the real one, I don't mind that. This is how it's done. If you're reaching out to the general public, if you really want to touch the general public, you got to do stuff like that, right? This is my note to all archaeologists. I've said it for decades. Get on this stuff. Don't do your highfalutin bullshit. Oh, it's so below me. No, it's not. You ever wonder why all your money's gone these days? Geez, where's all the funding? Ooh, why did they take it away? Ooh, maybe you want to talk to the general public at some point. Anyway, that was I talked about what it was like to work on those kind of shows, and I really enjoy it. Episode 176, the Silurian hypothesis. This is the episode right before now. I've got to the end, right? Oh, yes. The Silurian hypothesis. Does it actually contain lizard people? Episode 176. I love this. This is like the chupacabra. The Silurian hypothesis is still morphing, right? It's new, right? It's only sort of dozens of years old kind of thing. It's based on a paper from 2018, but it's also based on some ideas in fringe science from before. The setup is, was there an ancient super civilization like 400 million years ago? And if there was, what would it be like? There's lizard people that go with this. And then it also connects to the sort of conspiracy theory of public figures and government officials being actual lizard people, right? This is a time where the general public conflates all the lizard people stories into one overt narrative. Some people got mad at me. They were like, you don't even know the Silurian hypothesis. The Silurian hypothesis doesn't have lizard people in it. Google the Silurian hypothesis, click on images, see what you see. Hint, it's lizard people. I know the paper from 2018 didn't have actual lizard people in it, but there's a footnote that talks about lizard people. Anyway, the overarching idea for the public is that there was a ancient super civilization of like 400 million years ago, done by lizard beings that then lived under the earth and now come out every so often, and sometimes in the guise of public figures, because we as humans are just pawns in their lizard people scheme, right? So I am so curious, even more than Chupacabra. I am so curious for Silurian hypothesis, what it looks like in 5 years, what it looks like in 10 years. So that brings us to now. It's been a great 2025 with you guys. I have really enjoyed everything about this podcast. I know that's cliche. I know you're like, what about the downside? Sure, the downside is trying to come up with something every 2 weeks. You know, sometimes I'm right at the last minute. I'm like, oh, I got one. You know, some of my greatest ones, the Art Bell one was a last minute. Ooh, I got this idea. Right. So you never know. I swear there's an inverse correlation between the time between I actually think of something and how good it is. It's like I'll plan something for 2 weeks in advance and then it'll suck, you know? So anyway, I appreciate that you guys listen to me. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the emails. I appreciate all of it, you guys. I try and read every comment and email I get. And I really like that we have this kind of community that kind of bonds over the hilarity of pseudo-archaeology. So I really do wish for you a fantastic 2026. And I really do mean that. I hope all is well with everyone. And I will see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Pseudo-Archaeology Podcast. Please like and subscribe wherever you like and subscribe. And if you have questions for me, Dr. Andrew Kinkella, feel free to reach out using the links below or go to my YouTube channel, Kinkella Teaches Archaeology. See you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. The Archaeology Podcast Network's chief editor is Rachel Roden. Our executive producer is Ashley Airy. Our social media and newsletter coordinator is Matilda Siebrecht. The APN was founded by Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle on December 1st, 2014. We're supported by our amazing podcast hosts, many volunteers, and listeners like you. Check out membership at www.archpodnet.com/members.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.